Traders, Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, June 5th, 2022. In this edition of your weekend video newsletter, we'll discuss the indices, all of which moved lower in the US, yet international indices managed positive gains, with the FANG stocks mixed, with the exception of Amazon and Google with their splits in play. Netflix and the remaining stocks in the list on the right were substantially higher on the weekly basis as we look for a follow-through in those names this week. All things considered, with bullish sectors and 12 of our indicators neutral, 6 bullish and 2 bearish, we're looking for action to be very similar to last week as we trade into this week, with S&P support between 4,100 and 4,000 and resistance at 4,200 and 4,300. Bottom line, we're looking for similar price action this week with ranges, and towards the end of the week we're continuing to look for a bid to vol and some market pressure into Thursday, Friday. Starting off the week, we wanted to point out the AAII bull-bear ratio and how it's finally turning like it did in 2020, 2009, and in 1990, which happened to lead to one of the longest secular bull markets next to the current 2009 to 2022 secular bull market. With that backdrop and S&P 500 bouncing more than 9.7% into Thursday's highs, we have run into resistance along the 4150 level, so we could move in either direction. I suspect that resistance will hold. If we manage to get above 4200, then 4300 and the 50-day is in play. Above that, we have a very large volume by price band around 4350, and then of course we could see that upper trend line from the current descending pattern that started in January. If there is a silver lining with the S&P closing 1% lower last week, it was coming on a lower volume as we tapered off towards the end of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. MACD is still above its signal line and stochastics is embedded. That said, we do have a 95 point per day range that we have to deal with on the S&P 500, so volatility is still with us. Therefore, if we do see any strength in the S&P 500 and we manage to get above 4,200, we're looking for RSI to get above 50 on the weekly time frame as we remain in this descending channel or wedge pattern. Volume on the weekly as well, tapering off week after week. So we'd be looking for stochastics and MACD to continue turning and moving higher into June OPEX. The NASDAQ 100 also closed lower by more than 1%. We're looking for a potential retest of resistance overhead as RSI starts to move off the lows on this weekly time frame. MACD is also starting to turn, so depending on what happens with Gamma this week, if we add calls at higher strikes, we'd look for a follow-through. If resistance holds, we'd look for similar price action to what we saw last week. Therefore, we'll be looking for a tell from all the FANG stocks and the growth stocks that we are currently trading, with Amazon splitting 20 for 1 on Monday, currently showing resistance at 2700 or 135 after the split. Small caps fared a bit better. They only closed 1/3% lower, with buyers stepping up at the lows of the week. We're looking for rate of change to turn and move higher. And if you're bullish, you want to see IWM, a risky asset, moving higher this week, along with biotechs, junk bonds, and high-yield corporate debt. We'll cover those in a few minutes. That said, IWM will start the week from a doji setup. 9 and 21 day has crossed up, RSI is above 50, MACD is above its signal line on the daily time frame, and stochastics is embedded. So if we do attack the 50-day, Look for resistance overhead at 197.50. That's that volume by price band, an area where we traded quite a bit of volume in January and February. If IWM can continue higher, we'd also look for other risky assets, risk-on signals like biotechs to continue higher. We see IBB here in a very similar state, looking for resistance at 122, the 50-day moving average, then 126, that volume by price band area. With IWM and IBB or biotechs moving higher, we'd also like to see junk bonds and high-yield corporate debt hold these levels and produce a higher high this week. We noticed that we didn't sell off dramatically as we watch for RSI to turn as a function of price. We did notice on Tuesday, Wednesday that volume was much higher. Now we're looking for a counter trend to continue developing and mean reversion back towards the 200-day moving average, which would be bullish for equities if we continue to see that in the short term. If for some reason junk bonds and high yield corporate did start to sell very aggressively, that would be bearish for equities. We'd also like to see the New York Stock Exchange advance decline, make a higher high, and start following through after a very overheated start to the week. If you're bullish, we'd like to see this following through and moving higher. Bearish, we're going to see rejection and a turn lower. Advanced decline percent or breadth thrusts indicators did move a bit lower after getting extreme levels at plus 30% for the S&P 500, mid caps, small caps, and the NASDAQ in the lower panel. These did pull back a bit, looking for a move back towards mean or a reversal and a move back to the highs. If you're bullish, more than likely we'll see some similar price action that we saw last week, this week, as most of the indices are trading at resistance. NYMO and NAMO continue these bullish cycles, with the NYSE and the NASI both rising, with that 105.91 extreme level on the NYMO fading into the end of the week to 47, a more reasonable level on the NYMO. We did see the NYSE summation index also moving higher, so breadth is improving over a longer time frame, with indications the cycle has bottomed and could continue higher. That, of course, would be bullish for equities. Finally, we did see the New York Stock Exchange new highs, new lows close above the zero line for the first week in 2 months, while the New York Stock Exchange consolidated with green and blue elder sticks to start the week. So we're right at resistance. Look for any signs of rejection and a move lower. We could produce a higher low before proceeding higher, or we could break above that 16,000 level and just make a charge towards the 50-day in the short term. Bottom line, we're trading at resistance. VIX is starting off the week with a bullish signal. As long as this stays green, we're looking for this 60-minute time frame to lead to higher highs and higher lows. If VIX starts to spike this week, that would indicate a confirmation to the resistance that we saw last week. Bonds continue their basing action. Here is the 7-10 year. RSI near 50, price action right below the 921 and 50-day. MACD is flat to slightly bearish, and stochastics is recycling. The 20-year bond also consolidating in a base, looking for this to break trend. All the while, the 10-year consolidates just above the bullish 50-day moving average. And while bonds do consolidate, we're also seeing the US dollar consolidating along the 50-day moving average. Any strength here, along with RSI moving higher, will likely put pressure on gold and silver. Also consolidating right along the 200 period moving average, well off of its March highs, together with silver. In addition, copper also had a very bullish week, with price action fading on Friday back to the 50-day and 200-day. Looking for copper, a leading economic indicator if you're bullish, to continue higher. If copper does move higher this week, Look for builders and construction related names to continue a bullish trend. As we can see with Toll Brothers breaking trend last week, pushing a bit higher, look for a retest of the 200-day moving average. Many of these look very bullish. KB Homes, Beazer Homes, Lennar, all looking very similar. Pulte Homes, TriPoint on the West Coast, all appear to be making a base. That said, the big caveat, of course, remains crude oil and its bullish trend, which seems to be accelerating now off of the 921 and 50-day. All of the moving averages are turning up, indicating a bullish trend is resuming after a 3-month consolidation. Watch the volume. MACD's above its signal line. Stochastic is rising. Energy and oil-related names will most likely continue higher. As we saw, many of the refiners like PBF and Valero both moving higher. Based in the U.S., we're looking for these to continue their bullish trends. Sector heat map continues to improve, while the international indices are also improving. Chile, a standout, along with Brazil. With Brazil consolidating along the 50-day, look for a push higher, as well as PBR, Petrobras Brazil. We're looking for a follow-through in this stock that was pinned at 14. Now that about 40% of options expired on Friday, we're looking for those higher levels that we saw in PBR's options change to come into play. Perhaps we see a move towards 20 in the short term. Small cap sectors being led by energy. Financials are just below the 50-day, looking for a push higher. For the most part, small cap sectors showing relative strength as the index closed lower by 0.3%, showing relative strength versus the S&P 500 spiders. Big cap sectors also looked good last week, especially energy related names, materials, mining did well. We also see the RHD, RHS, that's the equal weighted consumer discretionary versus consumer staples, starting to make a base and potentially break trend above the 50-day. If that were to happen, that would be bullish for equities. We'd be looking for higher highs and higher lows in that respect as consumer discretionary starts to outperform consumer staples. With consumer discretionary moving above the 21-day moving average, we're looking for a retest of the 50-day. Still in a descending pattern, but any outperformance here would be highlighted as bullish, while we look for crude oil, oil and gas equipment, and energy-related shares to continue to move higher this week. 26 of the IBD 50 stocks look good. They're listed here. They're a mix of industry groups dominated mostly by energy names, but there are some additional names like Zim Integrated and the maritime shippers, bulk shippers that look strong this week, along with some pharmaceutical and healthcare names and some builder related like Boise Cascade and the Lumber Group and Beacon Roofing from the Construction Products Group. Amphastar Pharmaceuticals, AMPH, develops, manufactures generic and proprietary injectable, inhalation, and intranasal products from the healthcare group with a relative strength line at 98, showing great earnings potential going forward. Volume has been above average. Recent earnings also beat a surprise by 30%, 74% change year over year. Recently reported on May the 10th. Pfizer also on the IBD 50, looking strong this week. Relative strength line is climbing. Looking for Pfizer to retest this pivot high in the short term. Earnings for 2022 estimated to $60.74. Nice IBD metrics, looking for a follow through in the weeks to come. and a retest of that pivot high at 61.71. ATKR manufactures electrical and mechanical products for the non-residential construction and industrial markets. Remember, copper was bullish last week, looking for a follow-through. That leading economic indicator started to change trend. Look for ATKR to continue higher. Note relative strength line made a new high as we're retesting these pivot highs, a triple top if you will. An area of resistance above 120. This should follow through. 2022, we have a forecast of $19.96 per share. Growth rate is 57%, and the most recent earnings report was a beat of 93% year over year. Autonation, also looking very bullish this week, operates 339 dealerships offering new and used vehicles for sale, maintenance services, and financing in the U.S. Looking for a push towards 130, 133, that pivot high. Relative strength line is coiling up. Looking for a push higher. Growth rate Autonation is at 35%. Additional industry group stocks from the construction industry group, Beacon Roofing, Boise Cascade looking fairly strong. Builders First Stores looks like it wants to push higher. In addition, we have Carlisle Group looking very bullish, adding to the construction-related names that are following through. Carlisle Group manufactures thermoplastic roofing systems, off-highway braking systems, and friction products worldwide. Relative strength line is making a new high. Growth rate 14%. The company showing stellar earnings. This most recent quarter reported on April the 28th was a 209% beat. Looking for a follow-through in Carlisle over the next several weeks. Energy stocks by far populated the IBD 50. We got Synovus Energy, Comstock, Devon Energy, Diamondback Energy, Earthstone Energy, Accelerate Energy, a new IPO, High Peak Energy with one of the stronger looking patterns, Matador Resources flagging, together with New Fortress Energy, Occidental Petroleum, Pioneer Resources, Ranger Oil, and Viper Energy, rounding out the stocks from this group that look bullish going into this week. Zim Integrated on the IBD 50 again this week, looking very strong, trending above the 921 and 50-day moving averages, RSI above 50, along with bulk shippers like Matson. Very nice looking bullish pattern. 921 about to cross up through the 200-day. We consolidated for the last 8 weeks, looking for a follow-through, along with the likes of Scorpio Tankers, which has been trending after the breakout back in February. This just continues to move higher for the last 4 months, along with an additional IBD 50 name, Eagle Bulk Shipping. Nice bullish trend, most likely continues towards that 100 mark over the next several months, with RSI trending above 50, telling you that the strength of trend is improving, volume increasing. Looking for Eagle Bulk to continue higher this week. We're also looking for shipping stocks like Diana, the Greek provider of shipping transportation services for iron ore, coal, grain, with a current fleet of over 40 vessels. Looking for a follow-through this week, with Diana Shipping riding the 9 EMA, RSI is above 50, with the 21-day and the 50-day below, turned up and to the right, looking for a follow-through, volume increasing, looking for a push higher on Diana Shipping this week. With energy stocks showing relative performance, no surprise we have 14 of the IBD 50 are energy-related names. Look for Earthstone Energy, High Peak Energy, Ranger Oil, Viper Energy to continue higher. They showed the best performance last week, with High Peak Energy gaining over 7% for the week, with a very nice cup pattern. Looking for a follow-through and a breakout above 38 this week. Look for High Peak Energy to continue higher. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, June the 5th, 2022, with your weekend video newsletter. Make sure you check out all these names listed from the IBD 50. They look like they're going to follow through. Additional names from the relative strength line at new highs list in cyan. Look for those to continue. Stocks on the move and stocks that Swing Trader listed last week that we're looking for continuation. Note Enphase Energy and Valero, both of those looking very bullish last week. I'll send out a watch list later tonight around 12 midnight on the East Coast and about 9 o'clock on the West Coast, so be sure to check your inbox for that. Get outside, enjoy the nice weather. It's beautiful here in Myrtle Beach. Have a great evening, take care, and we'll see you in the morning. Ciao.